This is an example question about how we rearrange formula or we make a letter the subject of the equation. So in this case, we're given that equation, c is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared, and we want to make b the subject of the equation. So before I start, I always look to see are there square roots or fractions, and I need to do something to get rid of the square roots or fractions first. In this case, we have the square root of a squared plus b squared. So to get rid of a square root, we square both sides. C to b squared works out as c squared, and when you square the square root, it drops out. So squaring a square root drops out. Now we're trying to make b the subject of the equation, so everything with b I'm going to leave on one side, and I'm going to bring everything else across. Now the a squared has been added to the b, so when I bring the a squared across, it's subtracted. And then what we want to do here is get b on its own, not b squared. So that's the second last step. What you now need to do is get the square root of both sides, so that the b squared, when you get the square root of b squared, goes to b. And when you get the square root of that, you can't simplify that any further, so that's the final answer. And the reason you can't say this is equal to c minus a is because of the minus sign in front of it. So that's the first example. The second example. Now the subject of the equation here is q. Again, we've got a square root. So to get rid of the square root, square both sides. When I square a square root, it just drops out. When I square the r, I get r squared. I'm looking to make q the subject of the equation. So I want everything with q on one side and everything without q on the other. And that's done already. Everything with q is there, everything with r is there. Now I have two terms with q, so I need to factorize out the q. So if I took q out of the pq, I'd be left with p. And if I took q out of the plus 1q there, I'd be left with plus 1 there. All right, now we're going to check that as well before I go forward. So q by p gives me pq, and q by 1 gives me q. So this is definitely correct. Now, like I said, the subject of the equation is q, but right now the thing in brackets there, the p plus 1, is multiplying itself by the q. So all of that needs to be brought across, and when it's brought across, it does the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So we get q is equal to r squared over p plus 1.